Preparing to live stream. This meeting is being live streamed. Got it. Setting up your meeting. Done. Redirecting you to YouTube. Preparing to live stream. This meeting is being live streamed. Oh, got it. We're on YouTube. Setting up your meeting. Done. Redirecting you to YouTube. Preparing to live stream. This meeting is being live streamed. Oh, got it. We're on YouTube. Setting up your meeting.
I mean, your voice is awesome.
Hold on 1 second. There we go. And turn off the audio from the YouTube. All right, we are on.
Okay. You got me, girl. I almost quit before the show even started.
Well, let's walk everybody through what just happened.
Okay, well, first of all, what just happened is I have no idea what I'm doing. And I waited too long to test the tech. I just assumed if I scheduled a live stream, that would be all I'd have to do. That is not true. Sorry, microphone is not true at all. And my phone's dinging. And so here we are. Like, you had to walk me through. I almost quit minutes ago, as if I couldn't take it. I couldn't take the pressure. In fact, it was such an epic fail that you had to take over and assumed to be me to even go live here today. And
hey, but you know what we say in the world of show business, Rebecca? What is it that we say?
Do we say the show
must go on?
Does it must though? I'm like, day one, I'm out already. Like, this thing is overwhelming.
Hey, you know what? First day jitters. We got the kinks worked out. It's all smooth sailing from here. That's the great thing.
Your optimism is always like completely on point, and I need you in my life. I'm so glad you're here on day one. How this all started is that I was on a call with Jill, my business coach, who you know and love as you've been on her podcast, Heads Together. Excellent episode. You guys we'll put a link wherever links go to Taylor's episode on Heads Together. And Jill said, I need you to have more visibility, and you hate LinkedIn and you hate Facebook and you tolerate Instagram and you're not ready for TikTok. So what about YouTube Live? And I'm like, I'm in. I have the personality. I have things to talk about. I'm totally in. So here we are. Instead of doing what I would normally do, which is plan this entire show behind the scenes and then come out being perfect, as much close to perfect as I can, or at least to the point where I'm not embarrassed to look at the old stuff again, I've thrown all that out the window, and starting from scratch, we might as well live stream the planning of this show. And the reason I thought that was interesting was that how many other people are out there trying to think, what kind of visibility tactic is my business coach pressuring me to do? And what if I start a whole new thing that's completely out of my comfort zone? How do you do that? And how do you build it? And what goes into it? So anybody who's interested, wants to watch these conversations, Taylor, like, they can learn how a project starts from beginning to end. And in the meantime, I get to have really cool conversations with people I totally respect about a project that is very much outside my comfort zone, girl. So
But I just want first, can I just first just like give you a congratulations and just take a second, because what you just said, you kind of glossed over, like the fact that this is really outside of your comfort zone. And yet you did this, you weren't, in the perfectionist mindset, which so many business owners and entrepreneurs are, which is like, the fear of launching. And not only do you have the fear of launching something new, you were like, you know what, I'm going to go live on my launch, which you just like up the ante times 1,000. So I want you to just take a second and congratulate yourself just for that bravery, because, it takes a lot of bravery to do what we do and to be entrepreneurs and to start new things and to do it live in front of other people. I mean, it takes a lot of bravery. So.
Well, I'm assuming nobody's watching, so that helps me, like, with my bravery, which may or may not be true. I don't know. I hope people are back here listening to the recording of it. But it seems silly to not develop the show live and in real time if that's what it's all about. So I really kind of coming to the table with a blank slate and, like, I don't know, but we're going to do it. I really wanted, before we move forward, though, to acknowledge perfectionism and fear, because You said that together in the same sentence, and I've really been thinking a lot about perfectionism as a tool of fear. And I'm using those words exactly because a client of mine just put out a podcast episode about this. She's a leadership coach and consultant, and writing the email to promote it was like being seen through an X ray laser, and how fear drives perfectionism and the need to show up and come correct and make no mistakes and not be frustrated and be out of your comfort zone but still be cool about it. It's fear driven. So I'm overcoming my fear and just stepping into it, lady, and there's no one I'd rather step into it with than you. Anybody out here who actually is watching who doesn't know Taylor, I've had the absolute pleasure of being business besties with her for like 3.5 years. I'm gonna say 4 years. So when Taylor stepped out of the 9 to 5 game and into entrepreneurship, it was, as they say in diving, the giant stride. There was no slow ramp up to starting a business for you. You were pushed out of the nest. And I think that that happens to a lot of us. And I also think that entrepreneurship from the outside looks like something that we really prepare for and then just decide to quit our jobs. Many of us are just pushed out of the nest for whatever reason. The job we currently have has downsized. In my case, my boss decided to do a whole different thing, and she just went off and opened a new concern. So it was like you had to decide: am I an entrepreneur now, or am I back to being a 9 to 5? So I had the pleasure of being the person who was right outside the nest to catch you and help you with as much support and, professionally and personally, to really watch with pride as you launched Make a Scene Media, which is the coolest video concern this side of, I don't know, the gods, shall we say. What I love about you is your ability to really see people for who they are and allow that to come forth into the spotlight. And you do that at Make a Scene Media through video storytelling, in which you work with impact organizations and people who care to spread their message and get action on their thing. And you also do it in TaylorK photography, where you take beautiful professional portraits, family portraits, floral still lifes. You've done all of the photography for Stone Fruit. If anyone is just chomping at the bit to get their teeth in those juicy peaches and cherries, that is because Taylor brought it to life. So there is no one on the planet who can tell a story like you that I would want to have in this hot seat on day one to help me figure out what is a YouTube live show. What kind of show can I make that isn't like the most boring business drivel that ever happened? How can I stay excited about this show? And how do we make something that's like maverick, different, real, and sustainable? And how does someone like me not get bored with it? So that's really where I want to start with you, is like, what is a YouTube live show? Why would anyone do one? We're doing one. How do we make that great? It's just a casual conversation between you and me. We've been here, friends for a long time. So, finger guns, pew pew. Take it away, Taylor K.
Well, thank you very much for that lovely intro. Yeah, I mean, we've had a really interesting journey. I think both of us have gone through many iterations of ideas and business ownership. And I think that's the beautiful thing about owning a business. It's something that I didn't know before I got started, which is, you think you want to start a business and you have, everybody talks about making a business plan and creating your forecast a year out, 2 years, 5 years out. And, and those are all really wonderful things. But what they don't tell you when you start a business, that the business that you end up with in 5 years or in 3 years is very different usually from the one that you kind of dreamed up in the beginning, because so many, it goes in so many different pathways and different, it can take on so many different forms, just depending on what the market is telling you, where your heart is leading you, what your experience tells you, things like that.
Yeah, what people are telling you, what you're listening to, how you're responding. Like day one, your products and services sound great on paper, but then you get out there and people are like, this is awesome, but what I really need is this thing. And
Yeah.
so if you're listening, you can pivot on that And yeah, it's like having a baby. Whatever you think it's going to look like, that is not what it's going to be. Or getting married. Whatever you think it's going to be, that is not what it is.
It's not. And so I think that's kind of the beautiful thing. And, you said it, I do a little bit of everything. I do video storytelling, I do photography. I just, but it all really comes down to the power of personal story and authenticity. And so I think that's where YouTube Live comes in. And it's sort of this extra layer of authenticity that you can't get, anywhere else or by doing anything else. Video, I mean, I work in the world of video. We edit those videos, 6 ways from Sundays to really craft the story, to really help elevate the messaging and to really make the impact that we want to achieve. And so, the end user, in any case, if they're watching a video that's been edited, you don't really know necessarily what the full interview felt like or what the total story is. We see it all the time in politics, Frankenbites, they take pieces of one sentence and they put it into another. And then all of a sudden you've got this really inflammatory statement and everybody's commenting on it, but the authenticity is missing from that. And I think as a society, we're really savvy to that now. We realize that things that we see on television, things that we're seeing on the internet, those have been heavily curated, heavily edited to present a specific message or a specific lifestyle. But when you're going live, it's warts and all, right? There's, if you say you're going to go live at 9:30 and it's 9:41, you have to explain what happened there. You got to talk about it. And
that was us.
Yeah, but that's okay, because we made it. We're here. But you can't edit. You cannot go back and be like, oh my gosh, I really messed up everything I just said and I lost my train of thought. Well, guess what? We're just going to edit that out in post. It's fine. And so then you come across as this really poised, put together, polished person. But then again, you're not selling the authenticity. That's not real life. So, and I think as we hear more and more about ChatGPT, about AI, about this ability to really create artificially messaging and even imagery. But if you're going live, there is no AI. It's just you and I.
That was brilliant. I'd love to know why. I hear this all the time and I don't disagree with it. Genuine authenticity. It's part of the work I do. How do I figure out who you really are and who you really serve and what your voice really is to be as authentic as possible? Why do you think that matters? Why are people so hung up on authenticity and genuineness and pushing it forward into the zeitgeist right now that is such an important value to the consumer, and whether or not you're consuming by buying goods or you're consuming content or however you're interacting with the world? Why do you think we care so much that things are authentic when we've done such a good job curating storytelling all throughout all of human history?
I mean, I think it's really just this generation. And I think that it's becoming more and more prevalent that people are realizing that for so long we've been sold kind of a bag of goods that doesn't exist, right? Look at the ideal female body type, right? That we were sold throughout, my childhood of the 80s and 90s, or the sort of ideal lifestyle that, if you don't achieve these things, you are not successful and you are not worthy. But that left behind millions and billions of people that didn't fit into those molds. And so those millions and billions of people are like, well, where is my place in this world? I deserve to be here too. And I think that everyone is sort of clamoring for that sort of relationship between what they really feel and what we're being told. So I think that the awareness really started to happen, with the internet and with the ability to scrutinize some of this messaging. And then I think there were some brave people out there who really started to put themselves out there and be honest. I think you saw it on social media with social media stars or celebrities being honest about mental health issues or body issues. And then what we saw happening where people were really resonating with the honest truth, with that sort of, with that authenticity. And so then we started demanding it from everyone else, being like, okay, this picture perfect lifestyle is just a picture. It's not real. So what is real? And so it kind of trickled down from there. We're sort of seeing it in social media. We're demanding it from brands. We want to know what's in our products. We want the full transparency of what is in the skincare cream that you buy. What is what is under the hood of your car? How is it affecting the environment? How is it affecting me? So I think it's just a broadening of the information that we can have, and the realization that the more information, the more real, the more authentic, the better.
I love that. And dude, I was just thinking this morning, as a Gen Xer, I'm like, to see all of these kind of systems of like basically control and oppression, essentially, around ideas of like rugged individualism and capitalism and all the things. And for Gen Xers, we've kind of grown up as like, pulling back the curtain. That's all a dupe. It's a conspiracy, to the point where sometimes I thought I was gaslighting myself. But as the pandemic has really like just lifted the veil of naivete across all of these different systems, and how human beings are either valid or invalidated by some sort of metric that no one has any, it seems to be just like this organic mass. I'm celebrating it, and I feel so vindicated as a Gen Xer. Like, yeah, I told you this was fake. This was all fake. And now to see Gen Z like really come up and have this like they have this like unbelievably attuned bullshit detector, and be able to unpack and identify where things are using them, essentially, and to be able to push back against that and just be open. I find it to be tremendously I find it tremendously inspiring that the younger generation doesn't take the bullshit anymore. So I'm thrilled to see it. I also think there needs to be a lot more transparency in motherhood. Yeah, that is not what you think it is. I think there needs to be a lot more transparency in relationship, particularly in kind of straight marriages. And then I think there needs to be a lot more transparency in business and what it's like. Because in business, I don't know if I even see it anywhere other than Parenthood, where it is like this glossy picture of just being your own boss and making your own schedule and working for yourself and hustling if you want to or not if you don't want to, and having this sense of like, just autonomy and sovereignty and self-reliance, and all those things are true, but they also come at like this cost of relentless, like uncertainty and indecision and the fear we mentioned earlier, and operating in a silo, and not really having to be able to bounce ideas about. And also, there's no guarantee. You can do everything right for 10 years and still not make it. Where in school, as long as you show up to class, do the tests, the professor knows your name, you're going to pass. In business, you can do everything right for a decade and still not make it. So I'd love to see that transparency be kind of pulled back from entrepreneurship as well, because I think it's sold like a sexy, like a sexy lifestyle almost. And when you get into it, it's not like that for sure. And it's fantastic. But it's also fraught. Fantastic and fraught. Those are my F words.
I just had this conversation 2 days ago with my business partner, Heather. She's a mom, we're both moms, and, she's got a toddler. So she's got a 3-year-old, which, my hat is off to anybody with toddler. My children are out of that stage, thank God. But it's, that's really that's the tough age period. But she's like, did I just like miss my mom complaining about being a parent, but like, or is it really just this hard, is it really supposed to be this hard? And I'm like, yeah, I think that for many generations, moms just kind of sucked it up and just dealt with it. And they just were like, this is how we just got to do, and we just do it. And so I think that now, though, with social media, with this sort of new rise of authenticity, people are bearing those like the hard truths, of all of those different issues. And it is such a good comparison to business ownership, because as a business owner, it's the only other thing that keeps me up at night than worrying about my children's health, self, safety, and well-being. It's like the health, safety, and well-being of my business, and how to achieve this dream that we have. And it's, you don't know if you're doing a good job, right? You're like, okay, well, here's what the experts say to make sure that you're running your business like this, and you're doing your marketing like this, and you're closing your deals like this. Okay, well, if you're doing all those things and the work still isn't necessarily coming, well, what then? And then if you have the opposite problem, you've done all the things and all of a sudden this work is coming, but you have no way to really handle that because no one's really told you what to do once you do get really successful, and how to delegate and how to hire and all those other things. Then you have the other problem. I can't remember the statistics, but it's pretty high. Like the amount of businesses that fail within the first year, and then the amount of businesses that fail from the second year to the fifth year. I mean, it is incredible the amount of, people get into the business and then they can't sustain it because nobody really talks about how to get over those hurdles, how to get past those valleys. But I think, I've actually been really impressed with the amount of business resources that are becoming available. I think that the government has done a really good job to promote small businesses. I think, especially since the pandemic, I think more small businesses were started the year after the pandemic than had been started in generations. And so, I think that there are a lot of great resources out there. Finding a mentor, right? Like finding somebody that is a Rebecca Gunter that you can spitball these ideas off of. You can talk, you can call and cry and be like, this is so hard. I can't do it anymore.
Girl, that was us 2 weeks ago.
Yes. I mean, it happens all the time, but finding your circle of people that you can call and knowing that you're not alone in it, that everybody goes through those struggles. And sometimes you just need that little extra cheerleader in the back that's like, you got this. I know you do, to remind you all of the reasons why you started your business and all of the reasons why you got through the last hurdle that you didn't think you were going to get through. But yeah, I don't know. What other tip would you have for like,
well, number one, I would say, listen, y'all, please stop embracing bootstrapping as being the end all be all. It is so harmful. And not because it's convenient for me to want people to invest because I work with businesses in that way, but because when you bootstrap and you do everything yourself, that thing you describe, that phenomenon of like, well, now I have the business, but I can't possibly keep up with it. In my opinion, that comes directly from a bootstrapping mindset of I've done every single aspect of this business myself. I've built it. I've spent, and this is not me personally, like a persona. Well, I've spent 25 hours last week trying to figure out how to do QuickBooks so that I don't have to hire a bookkeeper. I spent 25 hours learning bookkeeping to avoid paying a bookkeeper who maybe charges, like, let's just hope it's a great bookkeeper, charges $90 an hour. Let's just say that. And you could be making $250 an hour doing your thing, but you chose to learn bookkeeping and something you'll never be an expert in, nor should you. But because we're taught the only way to be successful, the only way to make it through that first year, the only way to make it through that first 5 years is to bootstrap, and then we get stuck in this. Outsourcing it is a luxury I can't afford. Outsourcing it is not a lean business. Outsourcing it is not, well, that just feels wasteful because I could just stay up for the next 2 or 3 nights and figure out how to build a WordPress website. Like, I'm good. Entrepreneurs are scrappy and solve problems no matter what the resources, and then we apply it to our own businesses, and then we have a real crisis when the thing takes off. And now you don't have any employees because you didn't train anybody, and you don't have any systems because you didn't build them, and you don't have any resources because you did it all on your own. And I think that is a direct result of the rugged individualistic value system of America, where it's meritocracy, and those who are smart will rise to the top and those who aren't will fall to the bottom. All of that is a myth. You need people, you need community, you need reinsurance, you need business besties, and you need to stop thinking that bootstrapping on an island is how everyone got started. The garage myth, the hero myth, how everyone does it. Well, yeah, a lot of them do, and some of them make it and some of them don't, but that is a harsh reality that we should be aware of before we step into it. And also, you can be failing. I'd also like to say that you can be failing and be like, oh, well, so how many businesses don't make year one? How many don't make year five? I'm on year six, and by all accounts, you could say I was failing. I could be on year 10 and everyone could, you could, but look at me on paper and say I'm failing, but I get up the next day and I still make it and I still figure out how to pay rent and I still figure out how to put gas in the car and I still figure it out. So, two things: deconstructing bootstrapping and deconstructing what failure means. And start thinking about failure like experimentation and not failure, and you'll feel less lonely. But get yourself a business bestie like Miss Taylor Kampia. That's my advice.
But and I think it's hard though. I think it's again, there's so much information out there, right? So as great it is that we have so many resources to go to on the internet and people to look up to. There's all these wonderful business people putting out amazing content about how you to do your business better. But then at the same time, there's that comparison, right? Well, by this point in their career, they were already at this level. They were already doing these things, and I'm not there. So therefore, I've already failed and I've already washed out of this program, right? I met with somebody the other day who was an amazing entrepreneur, and he's like, I get up at 3 a.m. every day. And I'm just like, I can't get up at 3 a.m. every day.
I don't want that.
No, and I don't want that life either. So it's about making it your own. And I think that's what entrepreneurship is about. It's about creating a business, creating a lifestyle that works for you, and then owning that, and being okay with saying that what you're doing doesn't look like everybody else. And that's great. And again, that comes down to this authenticity, right? Don't try to mimic somebody else. Don't try to mimic someone else's process. Yes, take advice, build your council of advisors, get all the pieces of input that you can, and then throw away all the stuff that doesn't work for you. Combine the ones that do. You make your little decoupage of like a business, and that's the formula that sustains you, that will keep you going past those really tough times, because at the end of the day, you've created a life that works for you, and you've created a business that is doing what you want it to do. The business isn't running your life, you are running the business. And so I think that's a really common misconception, is that it has to be one way or the other.
Oh my God, the business. I feel like the business runs my life, but that's a super important point to use there. It's not a silo. You literally cannot show up to your business and be like, well, I'm having, some emotions around, I'm having big feelings around this invoice or contract I didn't get, or just, sales I thought were going to come through that didn't, or a project I thought was going to happen and didn't happen. And then pretend that we can just kind of sit down and divorce ourselves from any of those emotions or feelings. So to your point of feeling your big feelings, and some days are going to just suck, and some weeks are going to suck, and some months are going to suck. But I don't know about you, T. The thought of like doing anything other than that, I mean, I can't even imagine like now getting my resume together and starting to try and find some like corporate cog position. Like it's to me, that's as unrealistic as saying I'm going to go live in Antarctica for the next 18 months with a tent and
Yeah.
a small
I mean, again, I think, I took this really great business course through Montgomery County, Maryland, where I live. And one of the first exercises they have you do is write down your why. Figure out why it is that you started this business. And it is a big picture sort of why, and for me, my why has to do with creating a life for my family, for my children, and stability, to be able to have flexibility and time with them, and also the money to be able to have the lifestyle that we want. So if I can come back to my why every day and say, because I own my own business, I can walk home from school with them every day. Because I own my own business, I can, control my own schedule. Because, so coming back to your why every day and being able to live and work through that, even when it's really tough, that's a step that most people forget. They think about, okay, well, I need the money, or I want this or want that. But like coming back to the core of why you want to do this, that's what gets you through. So don't forget to come back to that dreaming part, to that like overarching goal. And the advice, I can't remember who they said did this, but somebody, a very, I can't, maybe Dale Carnegie, but one of the very most famous, business people, he actually had his why written down, and every single morning he read his why out loud. And that was the thing that got him through, all the tough times and the things. So that visioning is something you're really good at, actually. And you actually, when I first came up with, when Heather and I first had this idea to start the business, you came in with us and you workshopped with us. You sat down with the team and you really helped us vision out our why, vision out the life that we wanted to create. And the life didn't have anything to do necessarily with the business. It had everything to do with the overall feeling that we got when we woke up in the morning. It's 5 years from now, you wake up in the morning, what's the first thing you're excited about? And I loved that process. And if anybody out there is looking for a workshop and that sort of visioning, like Rebecca is the best at that. But it was illuminating. It really was, because I think a lot of people, again, when they think about starting a business, it's okay, how much money do I need to be making? What are the dollars and cents? And what is sort of the bottom line? And all that, what is the brand going to look like? And all those things are really important, really, really important. But again, get back to that core, your core motivation.
I love that you brought that up because I think that it's important to recognize that your why may not always be selfless. Your why may not always be because I want to end childhood hunger by the year 2050. Like, it can be that. It can be, I want to be a provider. It can be something to create a life for you, lifestyle freedom. For me, my why is a relentless pursuit of autonomy. So I have a lifelong commitment to being self-employed. I don't work well with bosses for whatever reason. I'm just relentlessly in pursuit of autonomy. And so that is my why, is to kind of like very selfishly, because I don't want to work for somebody else. I want to work for myself and also for clients who then value my opinion, take my advice, do the thing, get better, have a fantastic result of it, but a fantastic result therein. But my why is purely autonomy, and that's what drives me, is to just be autonomous. Like, I can't even tell you how strong of a drive it is. The thought of having, a boss is.
Yeah. I mean, I never wanted to get laid off again. Like, that was the worst feeling that I've ever had, was being laid off. And that was crushing, right? To feel like you really put your heart and soul into a company or an organization, and then to just sort of feel expendable. And so that was a feeling I never wanted to have again. And so that's one of my core motivations. Like, don't be expendable. I'm not expendable to myself, so I'm not going to be expendable for anyone else.
And that expendability, I think when you work like in a corporate environment or you have like a boss, that feels so precarious and fragile. Like, you can put in 20 extra hours a week for a solid year to like get a $3,000 bonus annually. Like, to me, all I can think of is, what would that 20 hours a week have done in a side hustle? What would that 20 hours a week have done in a hobby? What would that 20 hours a week have done in just like clearing your mind and creativity so that you can, though, go make some innovative decisions? So we get trapped, I think, in holding on to that tenability of it, and it's all an illusion. Honestly, whether you're a 9 to 5er or you're a 1099er, that is an illusion. But if you have a personal why, that tenability, I think, is something I can at least goose step like 3 steps ahead of throughout my entire career, even if it means I don't have a very secure feeling future, that fear piece coming back in, because you don't know what it's going to look like. You hope like, oh, well, in 10 years I will have made it. You have to define what make it means. And for me, make it means that I still can, I can still have a like eat what you kill model, and still support not having to go get a 9 to 5. Like, honestly, that's my driver.
Yeah, I think it's awesome.
Okay, well, anyway, Listen, Miss Thing, we had an incredible conversation all about business. We talked nothing about this show.
Well, let's do that. So,
Okay.
Fruit Roll-Up. I love it. I love the title. You're the best alliterative pun maker ever. So, I
I can't take credit for that. I got to tell you, Tony came up with Fruit Roll-Up.
love it. Of course he did. He's the
Yeah,
best.
he's adorable. But you forgot he did. So I was like, that's such a cute name. I'm like, you came up with it. That's
So
yours.
what is so tell me, what is your mission? What is your positioning statement for
I
this?
haven't written a positioning statement on purpose because we're going to do it live.
Woohoo! I love it.
So I have not done any planning towards it, any positioning. I haven't done any ideating. I am intentionally coming to this camera with a blank slate because, like I said in the beginning, normally under the cover of business, I would have, a dozen meetings. I'd have you. I'd have a live streaming expert. I'd have a podcast producer. I'd position. I'd have a I'd have like all the best people I could possibly think of to tell me how to do this project in a way that would be right, and like how would you do this right, like in their minds. Not that there's only one way to do it, but like how would you do it if this were you? So instead of having those conversations under the cover of night, we're having them live. So I don't know what the positioning is for the show because I haven't done it yet, and we're going to do that piece live, but I couldn't have a single conversation without talking to you first. What is a good show? Why do people do it? What do I need to be thinking of to plan a show that isn't just, any other business podcast? Like throw a dart at the wall and hit a business podcast, and they all sound like this. I don't want to sound like everybody else. I don't want to be bored with it. So
So then
Taylor Kampia, fix my life.
spirit fingers. Again, we'll come back to the very first thing we talked about, which is authenticity and staying true to who you are. So, that's the number one thing when creating your own show, when creating your own project. What is your message? What is the thing that you are most passionate about, that you want to talk about on this show, that you want to bring life to on this show, that you want to spread to the world? If you had to sort of think about what is that overarching Rebecca Gunter stone fruit wisdom, what is that?
I'm interested in two topics here, sincerely. One is punching up, and the other is kind of punching down. So I'm not really sure how to go with it. The first one is that by just pure example, I could lead folks in conversation, just like a fly on the wall perspective of what it's like to work collaboratively with it. Take two. What it's like to work collaboratively with creative people. So if every single person I got on the other side of this microphone or, webcam was a creative person, and I could really illustrate how you could stop working in a silo and start working collaboratively in sort of a collective to just advance other people's projects and ideas. Essentially, I'm really into this idea of like bartering brain space, essentially, and that doesn't mean no one can ever pass money between each other, but the more I'm in business, the more I find that like simply bartering creative services elevates both people or all the people at the table to go and get bigger projects. So how do you do that? How do you form a pod? How do you like, oh, well, we're going to put together a live stream show. So I need a video storyteller. I need a live stream person. I need this. And to kind of bring them together. That's interesting to me. There's a ton of conversation right now on the TikToks about neighborhoods and communities who are dealing with economic hardship and food scarcity by really bringing back the barter system. I make bread, you make a cake, you have eggs, we all change. I think we can bring that to business. That's interesting to me. What I really want to talk about is just the rawness of being in business, to dispel the myths of like hustle culture, to punch holes in the idea that if you just do X, Y, and Z, you'll make it, and what make it means. Kind of like we've been talking about on here. Is motherhood a grand illusion? What can we learn about business from that illusion? What happens when you want to quit for the first time in 17 years of like hustling for yourself, or this eat what you kill model. What's it like to feel lonely? What's it like to start a project that fails? What's it like to start a project that fails and not care that it fails because you had an experimental mindset? Like, just kind of like the anti guru message in a way, like kind of just more of a Gary V type, like, let's get real, you guys. Let's get raw. We're gonna do the thing, goddamn. Like something raw-ish, but I could save my raw stuff for a Substack and write the raw stuff. I even have a title for it, which is Business in the Raw. So we could do that, and I could focus this on creative collaboration. But I'm already bored with the first one. Right now, just saying it out loud.
I mean, I think, right. Like, what's more raw than a live show? And if you're really going to sort of peel back the curtain or see how the mincemeat is made, kind of using your fruit analogy, but like I think that
Oh, mincemeat, thank you.
I was like, I don't want to do sausage because that's not on brand for you, but but how I think that that's it, inviting people on here to really just get to the dirty truth of business and the anti-guru mindset, the sort of and of course I didn't turn off my phone. That's
Me
live.
neither. I was got pinged in the beginning. I've also been
That's live
shaking
for
the
you.
table. I've also been leaning into the camera because I don't have the webcam set up. All these rookie mistakes.
I mean, look, Jill just did an episode recently, this perfectionist episode that I think you're talking about the beauty of showing up unprepared. I love the idea of having your guests on and not actually tell them what you're going to talk to them about and be like, and it's sort of like, because why would one, okay, when you think about the motivations behind why somebody would tune into something, well, we are a society that wants to see a train wreck, kind of. They want to see what's going to happen. They maybe want to see people get a little tripped up and kind of come over it and see how they sort of recover. But that's to cut through the noise, to cut through the clutter, offering something a little bit extra and offering that extra layer of authenticity, that extra layer of vulnerability. In business, you're not always going to be prepared for everything that's going to show at you. Same thing with motherhood. You're not going to be prepared for everything that gets shoved at you in that role. So I think that I think that could be really cool. And I think that could be a fun, refreshing way to have conversation with people.
That's what I'm saying. Refreshing. Maverick. And that doesn't mean like I'm gonna dupe you. Like, this isn't Between Two Ferns where you come on and think it's gonna be one thing and then I'm like, haha, isn't business hard? But I just feel like the amount of like podcasts, live shows, things like that, where it's super polished. I bring you on, I interview you about branded storytelling. You tell me, with your hands like up here, what it is, and you keep your fingers crossed that you're going to get some extra visibility from that. And we all hope so. To me, that feels like, a beautiful birthday cake. I love it. It's delicious. It's still there. It's amazing. But I kind of want a smash cake because not everybody who gets into this should be in it. Like, it, what breaks my heart is how many people who get into entrepreneurship running away from bad bosses. And I know I've said that a lot. Like, I'm committed to my sovereignty. If running away from a bad boss is the reason you get into entrepreneurship, it's going to be really hard and make things harder for the rest of us who are literally, sincerely out here trying to solve problems or to like play in the business arena so that we all can eat, we all get better. So I would like to be real about how it is not just like that laptop life, hustle culture, y'all. Like, oh, mama's hustling again. Like, that's not sustainable. I don't want to get up early, drive my kid to school, work for 5 hours, go do pickup, have dinner, and then go back to my laptop. I don't think that that's any kind of life, and nor should we have to have one. But that's what's shoved down your throat is what you have to do. And so, yeah, being real about it. Sometimes you have negative $40 in your checking account for 4 weeks. Sometimes you do.
Yeah.
Sometimes you have $4,000 you didn't expect for a job that's super easy, like you feel like it's a crime to get paid for. Sometimes you get a $4,000 job that takes you 100 hours and you've like, underbid it and you've got scope creep and now you can't go market yourself to other clients. And when this job falls through, you're going to have a gap. All those things are real. So
I love it. I mean, look, the realness of a format like this, where so let's kind of hone in on it, right? So, like, the idea is this raw vulnerability, having guests on where they don't necessarily know what they're going to be talking about, just sort of in the vein of entrepreneurship. And I'll say, just from my experience, I worked in television development and casting for many years before I started this company, and I've interviewed people from all over the world, all over the country, about their lives, about their jobs. And I can tell you that in every single interview, I never, ever, ever give them a list of questions before I come and talk to them. Because if you do that, they're going to look at those questions, they're going to rehearse their answers, they're going to think about it, they're going to worry about it, and then they're going to get on the interview and they're not going to be themselves. They're going to be trying to remember the answer that they thought it was the best answer that you think that you want. And I can tell you that every single time it's a horrible interview if you give that person the questions ahead of time. When you get them on, when you just say, listen, I'm just going to be asking questions about your life, you know who you are, you know what you're doing, you know who your family is and what the job is. You don't need to prepare for that. You don't need a script. You don't need a topic. You get the most amazing interviews from people when they show up completely authentically, when they show up without a rule book, when they show up without a script in their head about what they want to say. It's funny because I listened to that episode that Jill did after my episode. And I remember I called her like the week before we did the podcast. And I was like, Jill, I don't know what we're talking about. I feel really nervous. And what am I going to say? Blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, I wish I'd listened to that perfectionist episode before mine, because, I know what my story is. I know what my life is. Why did I feel like I needed to prepare so much to talk about myself? Like, there should be.
Because we are under pressure to have utter commerciability in every interaction, because the pressure is on to spread awareness, to get someone to be like, I saw Taylor on this interview and now I want to get my professional headshots done. That's how it's supposed to work, and that's what we come to the table expecting. The result is it's a commercial for both people, and I just feel like that content is like tired. I'm tired, and I don't think that there's anything that can illustrate your talent and perseverance and tenacity and your style and the way you approach work other than talking about work. So just getting you, I could have had you come on here and been like, here's how I interview people, and here's how I find casting, and here's how we tell branded storytelling, and that would have been great. But to get you to tell me that story in the way of like how we're building this show, I think shows what you'd really be like to work with in a way more powerful way, because we've all heard the polished bits from everybody. So thanks for being a good guinea pig.
So now that we've kind of crystallized sort of the overall, I mean, how do you get closer to positioning? So once you come up with the what, then what's next?
Oh my God. You got a positioning. Who are my people? What do they need? Who am I? What am I delivering? And why is it special, different, or the one? So it's going to take a lot more soul searching, and we are going to do it, positioning live on the show, to really think about who are our people. To just say, like, oh, our people are entrepreneurs. Yep, that's a lot. It's a lot of folks out there, and it's just not very, honed in, specialized, nuanced, deep. Like, we can get deeper with that. What are they struggling with exactly? Are they struggling with loneliness? Are they struggling with indecision? Are they struggling with connectivity? Are they struggling with price? Like, I'm not going to be the person who's out here like, here's how you should price. Except for all my clients will tell me, all I can say is, that rate's too low. That hourly rate's too low. Those prices are too low. That's all I can say.
That's literally my advice to every entrepreneur: raise your prices.
Raise your prices.
Yeah.
Raise your prices. Seriously, this is embarrassing. Um, the cobbler's children have no shoes, though. I'm sure someone will look at my pricing and be like, you need to raise that as well. We're all in the boat together. We're all kind of struggling with that. So for me, positioning the show is going to get much deeper on who are my people, and what do they need. You and I've done a pretty good job. Like, okay, well, what is this? And what are we going to deliver? Real talk, stories up, blah, 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 interviews. We'll figure that piece out. Why is it different? And what do they need? And really more about our people. What do you think a show needs to be good other than authenticity?
Consistency. So YouTube is about consistency. It's about showing up on, a certain day, a certain time, and letting your audience grow from that. They would know, on Thursdays at 9:30, that's Rebecca's story, Rebecca's interview time. Let's check in every week for that. I think it's having interesting people on, and I think that you have an amazing network of creatives and entrepreneurs and everyday folks who would be really, really cool to bring on your show. So I don't think you going to have a problem getting guests. I think you have a really, really cool Rolodex already. So, I think it's just about putting together a product consistently, and I mean, obviously there's other tips, right? Like lighting or camera or microphone and all those sort of technical things. Again, but I feel like you can get really buried in that sort of stuff and really mired in those details when, for the most part, it doesn't really matter anymore. I mean, I watch the news now and they have anchors zooming in from home, and we're watching a Zoom feed that's low quality, and it's fine now. I mean, that's where we're at. I'm not even using a special camera. I have lots and lots of camera equipment that I could use, but when it comes to doing something like this, I think the ease and sort of just being consistent is more important than having this super high quality, high elevated, all these other bells and whistles.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you remember when Entrepreneur on Fire, that little podcast got started. I mean, it was like, practically in your phone. And I think that there is something to see something grow and improve and change over time. In your opinion, as long as you've known me, is there ever an opportunity or is there ever a chance on this show where you would say, Rebecca, I think that you should do some solo stuff? Am I always with a guest, or do I ever monologue to the camera for any reason?
Yeah, I mean, I think absolutely. I think that you have a great stream of consciousness. I think you have a great way of thinking about issues, problems, and I don't know, is it a recap from the show? Maybe you go live and then you kind of watch it back and you kind of give your sort of recap. Maybe it comes, the next day. Maybe it's something totally different. Maybe it's like a Friday afternoon. I'm just gonna bitch about something horrible in the business world, or something like that, whatever it is. Or maybe it's commentary, maybe it's something more specific to your work. I think there's a lot of opportunity for something like that. Yeah.
So you would think a blend of those things would be compelling, just in what you know of me and know of what I do and know of the people I know.
Yeah, I mean, I think you would want to, again, make it a consistent brand. So if it's like 30 minutes real talk with Rebecca, obviously you come up with something way catchier, more clever than that. But just sort of being, again, the overarching idea is sort of the same for each one. Like, for 30 minutes, I'm going to rant about something, and it doesn't matter what it is, but you're going to hear me rant. Or for 30 minutes, I'm just going to celebrate. Or maybe it's a half celebrate, half rant. I don't know.
I got a lot of both of those inside me.
You do. That's the great thing, but there's so many great topics that you could bring in. Or is it something more specific? Maybe, again, but workshop it, try it out, try it out for a couple of weeks, but then realize that, okay, you're getting an audience of all, let's say copywriters, because I know that was your former life. It was a copywriting. So you have a great network of those people. Maybe those are the people tuning in every single week. So, okay, you need to customize the content a little bit to who is actually tuning in, who is engaging, and then be like, okay, why are they coming to me? What is it that they're resonating with what I'm saying? And then build upon that and watch that little seed grow. So right now you're planting a lot of seeds, and you're watering them all, and you're waiting to see which one's going to pop up, because which seed is fertile in which soil. What's going to happen.
You brought that so beautifully full circle, because we started this episode talking about listening and responding. Like, you start your business and you think it's going to be one thing, and then 3 years later it's something else, and that's because you've listened. I heard someone say once that the most sophisticated marketing tool ever invented is listening. So listening, paying attention, seeing what your audience is responding to, replying to that. I mean, that's good. That's good branding. And that's good branding.
That's good branding.
Jing.
The other piece of advice that I would give, is especially in the early days, don't get stuck in the metrics. Don't get stuck in the analytics of the video and how many viewers and whether or not people are finding you, because I've seen it happen so many times where somebody puts out 50 episodes of something and they have, people in the dozens. Then all of a sudden it takes off and they really start to grow. And then all those original episodes that had maybe a couple of people watching now have hundreds or thousands because they've watch all this content and they're dying for more and they go back to the beginning and they watch it again. So, and again, but what if a dozen people watch? If a dozen people watch and one of those people walks away with this and they were getting ready to quit this entrepreneur journey and they listen to the podcast or they listen to the video about how this is a normal struggle and don't quit on your worst day, and they keep going, like that's why you're doing this. Again, come back to the why. So why are you doing this? Is this to motivate and to keep other entrepreneurs going through the tough times? Is this to create a community of people who can really come together and feel not so alone? Come back to the why. So even if you get a dozen viewers, just know that those are a dozen people that have been affected by what you just said, and your why has been successfully fulfilled.
I think that's such an important note, to not forget that marketing to a group of 12 can be just as powerful as marketing to a group of 12,000. You asked me once, like a year and a half ago, if I've ever marketed to just one person, and I did. I had a marketing campaign for just one person to try and get them to do this one thing. So to me, that was just as powerful as throwing a bit of spaghetti against the wall on Instagram or trying to do something else. You can just have 12 people and have the similar results or just as good results, as long as you're just keeping it all in perspective. So what I'm hearing from you is perspective, which I think is super important. And also, just to answer that, like, remember my why. My why is just relentless autonomy. I also want that for other people. Like, opt outside the 9 to 5 is like my whole shtick. So anybody else who wants to come along, even if you are running away from a bad boss, there's room at the table as long as you are a relentless problem solver and you listen. You can have a successful business. Fingers crossed. It's not always guaranteed, but we're going to find out more. Wow, more finger guns. You look at yourself in the camera, you realize you have like all these weird habits, especially when it gets like awkward, where you're like, okay, and pew pew. So, clock your weird habits. Awesome. I hope you'll come on again.
Absolutely. This is fun. I love it.
In a less chaotic way, like that we had in the beginning. Thank you for walking me through that tech panic of like, appreciate it. Maybe when we get to positioning, be interested in like participating in some of that, or I don't know, girl, I like celebrating you too and all the things that you've done, and I think the world needs to see some of your work. So it'd be cool to like maybe look at a project together and see how you built it. I don't know.
Yeah. All the things. Anything.
All the things. You're so kind to me. Well, episode 1, you guys, in the books. Couldn't have to any nicer person than Taylor Kampia to be in the hot seat for number 1, because there's just no one on earth I'd rather have helping me figure out what this thing is going to be and then being along for the ride than you, my dear. You're brilliant and I love you, and I'm so happy that we've been besties, business besties, and personally for as long as we have. And I'm lucky to know you.
Thank you. Me too. And I am so proud of you. And I think this is going to be awesome.
Wow, thanks. Okay, so I don't know what you say. I'll put the links in. We've got a couple of Jill's podcasts to listen to link to. I've got another podcast that's on perfectionism is the tool of fear. So put that in there. If anyone has comments, put them in the comment thing, whatever that is. Smash some buttons. Like and subscribe. These are all words I've heard. I don't know.
We got this.
Okay. Thanks, Taylor. I appreciate you. Is there anything else we need to do?
I think I'm just going to hit end and then we're done.
Okay. And then we're done. Bye, you two.